Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Mr. Longacre, and today we are looking through Notes C. By popular demand, I thought I would bring back the PowerPoint type of video where I go through this and kind of talk through our PowerPoints, and I hope that helps. If it's not your favorite type of videos, please let me know, and we can always accommodate everybody. But you will have 4 things that you need to do today, okay? Number 1 is watch this rest of this video, which you're already doing. Great job. Second will be to read 2 articles that I think you'll find pretty interesting after you kind of get through this discussion. And then the final piece will be to take a 5-question quiz. And all this is attached on your Google Classroom. It's all a part of one assignment. So just make sure you have that completed for your class so that you're ready to go when we come back. But where we're starting for today, we're really going to look at 2 major conspiracies or 2 major issues in the early 1800s. I think you're really going to enjoy this. So we'll kind of get started with Jefferson. And where we have left off is kind of after Jefferson's first term had come to a close. You know, he was elected in 1800. We called it the Revolution of 1800 as we switched from Federalists to Democratic Republicans. And it was really the first time where we peacefully transferred political power. And in fact, as I'm recording this, you know, the election is going on. It's November 8th. And so we're figuring out our own next peaceful transition of power. And but that's not all that he did. You know, in his first 4 years, Jefferson, by purchasing the Louisiana Territory, he's doubled the size of the nation. He's maintained peace with Napoleon, which is almost next to impossible. Just ask the British. And he, just by being a Democratic Republican and reducing size of government and cutting programs, he's going to eliminate a lot of the national debts. And it's for this reason that historians really rank Jefferson's term as one of the most successful in presidential history. I mean, think about that. How many presidents we've had, how many years, and they consider Jefferson's first term to be one of those. So I couldn't resist but to play this. And so, you know, for Jefferson, everything's kind of going well in his first term. He's moved into this new White House, and it looks good, and he's helped design it. It's in Virginia, and so everything's kind of going his way. And that brings us then to his second re-election. He goes up against a man named Charles Pinckney, and who really you kind of feel bad for. He had no chance of winning against Jefferson. You know, almost everyone voted for him. You can look at this electoral map here in 1804, and you notice that, you know, there really is no theme other than he wins the vast majority of the votes. Outside of Delaware and Maryland and Connecticut, he wins essentially every state. And so it's a landslide victory for him. And while he does win, there are some kind of cracks in Jefferson's armor that start to pull out. And it's during the election of 1804 that Jefferson starts to kind of, some of his old enemies kind of rear their ugly head. Now, you might remember from the election of 1800 that Jefferson and Adams really went after each other and really kind of attacked one another on personal levels, and it really ruined a lot of their friendship. Well, part of the reason that Jefferson was successful in that election was that he hired a man named James Callender. And Callender was kind of his chief of staff, if you will. He was in charge of a lot of the editorials. And in return for that, Callender was really looking to Jefferson for a new job in his new presidency, and he requested to serve as the Postmaster General for all of Richmond, Virginia. And he thought he was going to get it. He felt like he needed a reward for it. But unfortunately, Jefferson did not see it that way. And when Jefferson denied his job request, Callender kind of decided to turn on him. And remember, this is a guy that knows Jefferson at a very deep level. He knows a lot of his secrets. And when Callender turns on Jefferson, he brings out maybe the biggest bombshell that he could possibly find. And it has to do with what Jefferson was doing at Monticello. And Callender wrote in the Richmond Recorder, which was one of the most popular newspapers, especially in the South, that Jefferson had been keeping for many years as his concubine one of his slaves, and her name was Sally. And this accusation, while maybe unfounded in certain facts, certainly raised some suspicions about Jefferson and some of the relationships with his slaves. Now, what I want you to remember is that Jefferson was married to his wife Martha. They were married for many years until Martha died in the 1780s. And if you recall, kind of when she died, it almost like Jefferson went through a midlife crisis, and he became the ambassador to France, and he left her for several years, and he came back, and he never did remarry. In fact, on his deathbed, he promised his wife that he would never remarry, and he kept that promise until the day he died. However, people started to kind of pay attention. Now, wait a minute, is there an actual relationship between Jefferson and one of his slaves? And people kind of started looking into it. Well, and so that begs the question, who is this girl named Sally? Who is Sally Hemmings? Well, Sally Hemmings, guys, was a slave who lived at Jefferson's Monticello plantation. And here's what we know, okay? She had several biracial, light-skinned children that looked very similar to their master. In fact, Sally Hemmings herself was very light-skinned, which might suggest that even her father and mother were as a biracial relationship as well. But here's where it really gets interesting. When Jefferson's father-in-law died, Jefferson inherited most of his father-in-law's slaves. One of those slaves was Sally Hemmings. And it was widely believed at the time that Sally was actually Jefferson's father-in-law's daughter. And what I want you to get from that is that means that by marrying his wife Martha, Jefferson's wife Martha and Sally were actually half-sisters. They would have both shared the same father. So if Jefferson was in fact having a relationship with Sally, that means that he would have had a relationship with both his wife Martha while she was still alive, and now would be having a relationship with her half-sister Sally. So it's certainly an interesting story, but how much fact is there behind it? Well, here's more of what we know. Many historians kind of at first rejected this notion that Jefferson could possibly do that, and then they really started looking into it, and historical records of Jefferson's travel kind of reveal that he was always at Monticello 9 months before each of the Hemmings children were born, and she had 6 children, so it's quite a few coincidences there. But it wasn't until 1998 that a DNA study proved that there was in fact a genetic link between the Hemmings and Jefferson lines, and that is a pretty significant deal. I mean, Jefferson, you can't deny the fact now that he was there, that he did not have a wife, and after a series of further studies, the Jefferson Foundation even released a statement that, if you read at the bottom of your screen, said, "It is very unlikely that any Jefferson other than Thomas Jefferson was the father of these Hemmings children." Pretty fascinating story here, and if you look at this picture, here's actually a picture of the Jefferson Hemmings descendants in 1999. You can clearly see a biracial family. However, it wasn't accepted maybe as well as you would think by many of the Jefferson descendants that they in fact had a lot of these maybe what we would consider illegitimate real family. And so what I want you to do now is, on those 2 articles, make sure you go in there and you read about this, how it kind of went down when the Hemmings family meets the Jeffersons and what kind of goes on there. Might not go maybe as well as you expect. So make sure you read those 2 articles and come kind of prepare to discuss in class, how do you take this? Was Jefferson a hypocrite for this? Did he uphold his promise to his wife by saying he was never married, even though he maybe have had a relationship with Sally? And then think to yourself, how do we judge Jefferson for that? Does that change how we view him? Do we need to look at him with a different light? Because certainly, it's hard to deny that he was in fact a part of this. So that's your first conspiracy, and that's going to be our first video. I'm actually running out of time, so I'm going to record a second one about the Hamilton Burr conspiracy.